it's really mind-boggling to read about what you went through and how nobody wanted to be associated with this. And it's almost ironic because the idea of academia is to challenge norms, I guess, to challenge things that we hold to be true, whether that's philosophical or whether that's in the physical world. It is to challenge authority in a sense, and yet nobody wanted you to challenge this authority because it gave other people political power. What did you find? What was your most critical piece of research that you were the most shocked to find once you actually were able to get started on this?
I think the biggest takeaways from my research is I was a mediator. I became a certified mediator in law school. I've mediated disputes in small claims courts. And what I saw was when I mediated discussions between pro-life and pro-choice law students, they could not move beyond the question of when life begins. It was just this intractable issue that nobody was willing to stipulate to any position, even for the sake of argument. So what I did was a step-like process where I allowed them to dictate how that factual dispute should be resolved. So I started by asking them, is it an important question? Most Americans said that it was. Then I asked them, who is most qualified to resolve it? And I actually put to them the experts mentioned in Roe v. Wade. So in Roe v. Wade, they had contemplated the question of life begins. And they had said that no experts in theology, philosophy, science agree on a certain point. So I posed biologists, philosophers, religious leaders, Supreme Court justices, and voters. 80% of Americans selected biologists. So overwhelmingly, people understand that question to be biological in nature. So then my next step was to go to biologists. So as Josh covered in the piece, I spent over 500 hours collecting the contact information for biologists. I had to translate websites from other countries into English so I can find their contact information. I spent all this time, collected over 70,000 biologists' contact information. And then I emailed them all and asked them various questions that focused on the biological perspective. So I didn't play with ambiguities about personhood. I communicated it to them clearly. From a biological perspective, when does a human's life begin? Is a zygote a human when it has human DNA and is developing in the human life cycle? And overwhelmingly, biologists do recognize that a human's life begins at fertilization and that a human zygote is a biological human.
And the number for that, let me interject for just 1 second. This was actually shocking to me because I didn't think that a lot of scientists in academia would admit this because of the implications on abortion. You found that 95% of these biologists around the world, 95% of them affirmed that life begins at conception. That's I'm happy to hear that they acknowledge the science of it, regardless of the politics. But that's really crazy research.